Jay Bilas is back here on the Rich Eisen Show, kind enough to zoom in as he's making his way to the NBA draft, fresh off of the ABC and ESPN family of networks coverage of a remarkable season and postseason. Good to see you, Jay Bilas. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Rich. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Your 2 cents after what you saw in Game 7? What are you left with? Your impressions?
I was deflated, honestly, when Tyrese Halliburton got hurt. You could tell right away. You know, they can't say it on the air because you can't speculate. But he knew right away it was an Achilles. That means he's going to be out for a year. And it just took the wind out of you. And it clearly took the wind out of the game. Didn't mean that Oklahoma City wasn't going to win because I think they would have anyway. But that's just my thought. But it would have been. I thought it could have been an epic finish, an epic game 7. So that was kind of sad, but Oklahoma City had an amazing year to win 68 games and then rip through the playoffs the way they did. And Gilgeous-Alexander, when he got drafted number 11, you know, hands up all those that thought he was a future MVP and would do something that only kind of Jordan and Kareem have done, going through the regular season and the playoffs, being MVP, leading scorer in the league, and then Finals MVP was really remarkable.
Well, I think Jerry West was maybe one of them who, you know, back in the day when the Clippers had him, he loved him. I mean, he was talking about how stupendous he was, but you're right. I mean, in terms of what he has blossomed into and has grown into, and I guess let's go here for the moment while we're touching on the subject. Certainly with the draft coming up in 2 days, and we talk always about when a draft hits nature versus nurture. Do you think SGA could have become this had he stayed put here in Los Angeles? I know there's a large if here and there's a lot of speculation, but do you think he was just in the right place at the right time to blossom into this, or he always had this within him, Jay?
You know, I think it's probably the latter, Rich, that he's the real deal. But, you know, that question gets asked in the college context sometimes, even with Steph Curry. They would say, you know, if you had gone to Duke or North Carolina, do you think this would have happened? And he says, I think I've heard him say no. Now, maybe I'm wrong on that. But, you know, Davidson gave him an opportunity where he could have the ball in his hands from day one and really blossom at that level, if you will. So it's the same kind of thing. I mean, fit is important and environment is important, but he's got the goods, too. It's just that's the interesting part of the draft that we're headed into Wednesday and Thursday is I don't think this draft's going to be any different. We're going to look back on this in 5 years and we would redo it completely. And, you know, myself excluded, there are a lot of smart people looking at this stuff. And, you know, how many times can we say, all right, well, Jalen Brunson, who thought he was going to be clutch player of the year when he came out of Villanova? There were some people that thought he might have a tough time sticking in the league. And SGA gets taken number 11. And, you know, you got Donovan Mitchell, middle of the draft of the first round. It's so hard to tell when they're 18, 19 years old. And I'm sure baseball has the same problem, but that's part of the fun of it is we have them slotted now. We think we know. We don't know. We just believe.
So what are you, just cycling back to the Thunder as a whole, Jay Bilas, what's their secret sauce? What makes them so great? Obviously, they've got a great player in the MVP of the league, having one of the all-time great seasons, regular and playoffs combined. But what, as a whole, is the Oklahoma City secret sauce that you think everybody's going to try and copycat if they can, Jay?
Well, if they're going to copycat, they better do it with some patience and having some smart people like Sam Presti in charge. Like, I don't know how many people are talking about this, but I think they should. Sam Presti, if there's anybody better in the NBA at putting a team together and doing it with, obviously you have to have talent, but doing it with character. I mean, you know, that team is so well put together and they've got so many draft assets in the future that I think that's a franchise that can successfully deal with this second apron. You know, this is 7 different champions in 7 years. And with the new collective bargaining agreement, it's going to be really hard to keep teams together when guys are commanding this much money. But with all the draft assets that Oklahoma City has, I think they're in the best position to navigate that and still remain up or near the top in the NBA. And look, every year this time we start talking about, well, could this be a dynasty? We talked about it last year when Boston won. And now the talk is, are they going to, kind of tear that team apart because Jason Tatum got hurt and the payroll is going to be $500 million or whatever it is next year. But Oklahoma City is really well run, and the way they defend, Indiana moves the ball really well, and they're an excellent passing team. And there were some possessions in the game last night where the ball would start out on the right and whips around to the left, and you saw maniacal rotations and closeouts to take it away. To get guys to play that hard together on the defensive end, and they did it all season long. It wasn't just they did it in Game 7; they did every single game. They lost here and there, obviously, but I didn't see any team that played defense the way they did all year long, and that's kind of in their DNA. And the players they bring in, like, that's contagious. Sort of the team concept of everybody defending to the fullest. I think that's in their DNA. And anybody they bring in, they better buy into it, or they're not going to be there that long.
Yeah, that's a great way to sum it up. That's why I love having you on, Jay. And then we were just talking before. It's a mixture of Canada's finest and the West Coast Conference's finest, right? Just as a core, it. And then they take a coach from their G League team, right? And then they take Hartenstein from the Knicks. They take Caruso from the Bulls, and obviously he had a ring from the bubble with the Lakers. And the rest of their young team put it together. And that third quarter, I think, encapsulated it, right? Where SGA goes off offensively, Jalen Williams began to get his sea legs under him, and then defensively as a collective unit, certainly on the perimeter. And then if somebody gets beyond the perimeter, there's Holmgren underneath, just looming large. It's a really unbeatable combination, Jay.
All the pieces fit. All the pieces fit, to your point. Like, of the players they've drafted and the players they brought in, there's a we first mentality there, and you can tell just in the way they handled their interviews. Everything is so professional, and they really do seem, and I'm not there, so I can't tell, but they really do seem to enjoy the success of each other. That it's not, I just won the MVP, therefore look at me. Like, SGA was throwing the spotlight on teammates. And even something as seemingly silly as when they do post-game interviews throughout the season, they got basically the whole team behind the guy doing the interview. It may seem kind of corny, but that comes from the top. And then Mark Daigneault, I met him when he was an assistant to Billy Donovan at Florida. And, it wasn't like I was sitting there thinking, oh, there's a future coach of an NBA champion, but you're really impressed with how mature he was and how measured. And I like him. I think he's like Brad Stevens, Rich. Like, he's the real thing. And talk about a guy who never gets too high or too low. He talks all the time about winning the off days. So they lose a game. They're competitive. They want to win. They're disappointed. But they're not going to beat themselves up. They're going to find the solution and the adjustment for winning the next game. It's not about lamenting what we did or didn't do in the last game. It's about putting ourselves in the position to win the next game. That's the way they look at it, and I think the team responds really positive to that. And Daigneault and Sam Presti set the tone for it.
No, and I know you got to have stars in the NBA, and SGA is the MVP and a superstar. There's no doubt about what he has become. But I use that as a preface to ask you this question. Is the super team era dead in the NBA now, Jay? Is it over?
Well, I mean, it seemes like it is, but everything's cyclical. I never saw the sort of, three guys teaming up together when it kind of started in Miami, I guess, with the Heat, with LeBron, Bosh, and D Wade. But I don't know that it's over. But what Oklahoma City is doing is hard to do because you have to have a plan and stick to it. And, I mentioned the character piece. Like, your point about you have to have talent is exactly right. But there's nothing written anywhere that says you can't have talent with character. And they insist on the character part. And I was laughing about this the other day. I've got all my scouting reports ready for the draft. And at certain points, I have, high character guys, stuff like that. And I remember when Bill Simmons was writing that column about the draft when he'd watch it with his dad or something like that. I had talked about a player being the ultimate character guy, and Simmons wrote like, I thought that was Gandhi, and I'm like, well, Gandhi didn't have a jump shot. Like you wouldn't take only character, but you can have talent with character, and I think Oklahoma City has that. But while some teams are firing coaches left and right and all that stuff, you're not seeing that with a franchise like Miami or with Oklahoma City, and they get pretty good results. And I happen to think that's the right way. Look, if you have somebody that you know isn't right, I'm part of the Jeremy Foley, the former AD at Florida. He used to say, "What you will do eventually, you should do immediately." So if you think you're going to fire a guy the next year, you go ahead and do it now. I understand that, but the way coaches get fired now, you're kind of going, "Is this part of a plan, or are you just throwing darts, hoping you hit a bullseye at some point?"
Jay Bilas here on the Rich Eisen Show, making his way to the NBA Draft, which is Wednesday night. You can catch that on the family of networks for ESPN and ABC and so much more. Do you like the Durant acquisition by the Rockets, who send Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the 10th overall pick on Wednesday night, and 5 second-round choices to the Suns for Durant at age 37? What do you think, Jay Bilas? What do you like?
I like it, but it's got to work in the next couple of years to sort of win a championship. Kevin Durant's one of the greatest players to ever walk the planet, but he is 37 years old, and he's still incredibly effective. But you did give up a lot. Jalen Green was the number 2 pick in the draft. He's a young, budding star. And then Dylan Brooks provided a lot for Houston with toughness, his ability to knock down a perimeter shot. So it's not like they got Kevin Durant for nothing, but that was a team that struggled at times to shoot it. They're a great offensive rebounding team, really good defensively. So I think it was a huge upgrade on the offensive side for the Rockets, and it puts them right up there in the West to be a contender. When you got a guy that can play iso ball for you at times, like he can play in a team concept. He showed it in Golden State, but when you need a shot, he can go get it. So I like it, but it's a 2-year thing. I mean, I can't imagine all these guys are going to continue at the level they're at past 40. Maybe they do, but I don't think you can bank on it.
Jay Bilas, before I let you go, your expectation for the first night of the draft. What are you expecting for that first round, the top? What's your 2 cents?
I think the draft starts at 3, that we're going to see Cooper Flagg go number 1. I can't imagine a scenario. I think there'll be a lot of trades on draft night, but I can't imagine that there's a scenario in which Dallas would trade Cooper Flagg. I just can't imagine it. He's the future of their franchise, and rightfully so. And I think Dylan Harper of Rutgers is likely to go 2, whether San Antonio keeps the pick or not. But he'll go number 2. And then it's wide open after that. There's some sort of differing views on Ace Bailey, a teammate of Harper's at Rutgers. He's ultra talented, but he comes with a little bit of risk, and he hasn't worked out for some of the teams. He hasn't worked out with Philly. And then it's a question of what do you do with when you get to 3, 4, 5, like you got Trey Johnson of Texas, Con Knippel of Duke as great shooters, and BJ Edgecombe of Baylor. These guys are all young guys. Edgecombe reminds me of like a 19-year-old Victor Oladipo, or maybe an 18, 19-year-old Dwayne Wade. That doesn't mean he's going to reach those heights, but he certainly can. He's got the makeup to do that.
So who do you like as a? Sleeper is just a silly word. Obviously, we don't know, but. Who do you like? Who would you pound the table for and say, this guy doesn't have nearly as much heat on him as he should in this draft? Jay, who do you like there?
It's interesting. Like, I think the kid from Duke, Con Knippel, is really interesting. Like, I could see him going number 3 because he can really shoot it. He's probably the best standstill shooter in the draft. The best overall shooter, both, catch and shoot and off the dribble, is Trey Johnson, in my view. From Texas, and he's got a 6'10" wingspan. He's a fast twitch athlete. He's not an impactful defender just yet, but he's still only 19. But Knippel he really shoots it. I mean, he's a 48% corner shooter. and I think he shot like 48% from the field, 41% from three, and 91% from the foul line. He's strong. He's not an NBA elite athlete, but when he gets in the lane, he plays off 2 feet. He's always around the ball, getting loose balls. He's tough. I can see him. I can see Philly taking him at 3 because he can shoot it. But there are a number of options they have there. I'll be interested to see what happens with Ace Bailey. I'm not sure I would have counseled him taking this approach to the draft as far as the way he conducted the workouts and didn't go to certain places and decided not to show what he had. He could go anywhere from 3 to 8. But he's ultra talented, and he's one of those guys where teams are going, well, if we take him and it doesn't work out, we get fired. And if we don't take him and he turns out to be all that, we get fired. So there are going to be some tough decisions, kind of 3 through 8.
Jay, you're the man. Go fly safe and have a great draft. And so, what's your plan? Are you a first on a plane guy? Do you reading material? Do you have a show downloaded? Like what's the Jay Bilas flying approach? What is that?
During the season I work, I do like to get on the plane first just to get my bag in the overhead. But actually, right now I'm in Maine, so I'm going Maine to New York, and people actually think I'm up here to find Cooper Flagg, but he's actually in Durham right now. But you can probably see behind me there's a big lobster tank at the airport. So it's pretty impressive stuff. It was really different. I was up here for a charity golf tournament.
Well, of course you were.
It's called Drive for Kids, which I think I can rename 3-putt for Kids for the Dempsey Center and the Barbara Bush Hospital. And the people in Maine are really nice. But I got a lot of Cooper Flagg questions. I think I have to have a sign around my neck that says, only Cooper Flagg questions after the round is over.
Okay, very good. Like quiet, please, in one arm, and then no Cooper Flagg questions until after the. I'll see you in Tahoe, if not before, Jay. Thanks for the time, brother. You're the man.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, brother.
One and only Jay Bilas.
The Maine airport is really great. Really small, homey.
Wouldn't that be aggressive to get a lobster to go and bring that on the plane? That's aggressive.
Rich, I can honestly say I've seen a lot of stuff in this lifetime. I've never seen somebody eat a lobster on a plane.
Emotional support lobster.
Emotional support
lobster.
Bring
the thing live.
An emotional support lobster.
And by that, Chris, I mean just a full-on lobster.
The full-on lobster.
An ESL.
Bucket list.
Love it. I mean, I worked on a lobster boat.
Yeah.
That would just be aggressive.
He had a beard and everything back then.
What's that smell?
Yeah, not a great smell.
You know what I mean?
Not a great smell with the lobsters. Yeah.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.